Well, hello there, beautiful, and welcome. I understand you may not be feeling so beautiful for a variety of reasons, but I want to assure you that you are, and I see you, and there is help. So perhaps one of the reasons that you are not feeling so beautiful is that you're not feeling like your old or younger self. Maybe it's fatigue. Maybe you don't have as much energy as you used to. Maybe you're carrying around some additional weight that you just can't shake. Perhaps your sleep is off. I don't know, maybe it's inflammation, maybe it's joint pain, maybe you just don't have the positive mindset and mood and motivation that you once did. But I do want to assure you that it is possible. So I'm Sharlene Styles. I'm a holistic nutritionist. I'm an energy, wellness, and metabolic balance coach, and I've been helping women for the past 10 years with all kinds of issues related to health and more predominantly related to hormones. So as I myself have aged, so have my clients, and my practice has changed to include dealing with all kinds of hormonal issues. And I'd like to share with you today what I found in my 10 years of working in this industry, working predominantly with women. So it's my hope today that I'll share this, what I think is the very key information about how to address these types of issues, and why you are not getting the results that you are looking for, and then give you some very key strategies that you can implement yourself to balance your own imbalances that are happening right now, and then some next steps to take if you so choose. So let's dive in. We'll start with what I call the Trinity for Wellness. There are three things that are all interrelated and interconnected and then cannot be separated. And they are inflammation, gut health, and hormonal health or hormones. And the reason that they're all interconnected, sadly, is if there's an imbalance in one of these areas, it creates an imbalance in all other areas. So for an example, if you have any kind of digestive health or gut issues, what that leads to is inflammation in the system. And then, of course, that ripples into hormonal issues. So the loop continues regardless of where you start, whether it's with hormone issues and it affects your gut or inflammation, it's all interconnected, as same like mind, body, and soul. When people come to me from a nutrition standpoint and want to deal just with the food, we cannot separate the mind, the body, and soul because it's all nourishment. So the same with the wellness trinity. These three key factors, sadly, they present with all the same types of symptoms. So it's really hard to distinguish which one is imbalanced. But the good news is we can address them all at the same time. So I'll just zoom out for a moment and just give you an overview of what some of these symptoms look like in each of these areas. So let's start with inflammation. Sorry, let's actually back up even further and let's look at what the symptoms can be often that are triggered by this wellness trinity. So low energy and fatigue, additional weight gain, sometimes even weight loss, brain fog, memory impairment, allergies or acne, or even autoimmune conditions can all represent from this impairment in this wellness trinity. So we'll zoom out and look. First of all, we'll start with inflammation. So we know that acute inflammation is actually good. It's a protective measure so that we don't continue doing more damage to our injured self. And it gives the body time to repair and heal. So for an example, you bang your knee, you stop using it. Hopefully that's the body's indication to take it easy, so you don't keep using that part of the body that's injured, so that it can repair and heal. So acute inflammation, very good, very helpful. It's when we have this low grade consistent and systemic inflammation that is actually a hormonal response that we need to address. Okay, so next we'll look at hormones. So we have all the same symptoms, plus if you have hormonal issues, you may see things like PMS issues or very big mood swings, or even dryness. We zoom out now, looking at gut health. If you have any digestive imbalances, same symptoms as we mentioned before, but now you can add on things like bloating, acid reflux, constipation, those things on top of the common symptoms of fatigue, brain fog, memory impairment, weight gain, allergies, acne, autoimmune. So the good news is, if you are suffering from any of these, regardless of where you're at, there are some very key strategies that you can implement today that will help you to get down to the root of this and hopefully balance your imbalances. So let's start with the diet. Increasing the amount of fiber in your diet is really key. So we may know fiber comes from plants, things that the parts of the plants that we can't digest, it creates roughage. So this roughage not only clears out the intestinal tract and takes away metabolic debris, but it also sweeps away any additional hormones like estrogen. So very beneficial to get all of that out. So where does fiber come from? You may ask. Yes, plants, but fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and even some grains. So increasing these real whole foods in their natural state is really quite key. And I will add, when you increase your fiber, you do want to make sure that you have adequate amount of water. So maybe upping your water gain as well would be beneficial. So water, we know, flushes out the system. So if we're increasing the amount of roughage and we're not excreting all of this, what's happening is just it's recirculating into the system. So we want to make sure that we eliminate not only the roughage, but all of the metabolic waste and all the excess hormones, particularly estrogen, as we age. So the adequate amount of water, as you may know, if a rule of thumb, if you just take your body weight in pounds and then divide it in half, that is the number of ounces that you should have theoretically in your day-to-day living. If you're exercising, more is required, but for basic body functions, half of your body weight in ounces of water would be great. So as an example, 150 pounds, you divide that in half, that's 75. So 75 ounces of water per day for an average 150 pound person. All right, the next thing you can do is stop ingesting or completely eliminate inflammatory foods. So inflammatory foods, they are different for many. However, there are some very common offenders, we'll say. So for many people, gluten or dairy is very inflammatory, but so too is sugar and alcohol. And all bad fats are very inflammatory. So things that are fried, even high omega-6s, trans fats. So any kind of bad oils, we can talk more about that another time, getting down into the nitty gritty, but we'll leave it at bad fats right now are very inflammatory. So too are, or can be, medications. Any prescription medications can be inflammatory to the system, as well as genetically modified foods. So ideally, we're going to remove all kinds of inflammation triggers and remove those offenders. The next thing you can do is add good fats into your diet. So good fats come from things like avocado, nuts, and seeds. Flax oil is a great one, so is coconut oil, as is olive oil. All right, so the next thing we can address, which is probably more challenging than it sounds, but is reducing cortisol. So cortisol is our stress hormone, as you may know. And cortisol is triggered from all kinds of stress, whether it's physiological, mental, emotional, physical. Now there are some things that are beyond our control that cause us stress, and some things that are kind of a good stress, right? Like exercise is a good stress. However, depending on where you are in the breakdown of this trinity, adding additional stress can be very, very damaging. So reducing the amount of stressors that you have in your life, and there's many ways that you can do that. But first of all, let me just kind of highlight the things that cortisol impairs. So of course, the more cortisol that you have, the less melatonin So it reduces our quality of sleep. Also, if you have low amounts of sleep or not quality sleep, that raises your amount of cortisol. So it's interrelated as well. Caffeine and coffee increase cortisol. Um, so um, I know that there's many people right now that are doing this intermittent fasting and have on the intermittent fasting kind of route. Coffee on an empty stomach is okay because of the caloric intake. So black coffee is typically okay on an intermittent fasting diet if that's what you're doing. However, when you're addressing this whole trinity of wellness, this isn't just about weight, it's about balancing your hormones, your digestive health, and the inflammation. So coffee on an empty stomach is not a good thing because that raises cortisol. So of course, coffee has some very key benefits, but I will tell you, out of all of the cleanses that I've done, group cleanses that I've done for people with participants over the years, cleansing, we get rid of a lot of, harmful habits and products. And coffee by far, I would say, is the hardest thing for my clients to give up. And I appreciate if that's you. There are ways that you can still enjoy a coffee and not have the spike in cortisol, and that is to have coffee with your meal. So I guess a whole nother topic about intermittent fasting and coffee, but just to say, if you are trying to address hormonal health and this trinity of wellness, as I mentioned, just be mindful of the amount of caffeine. So that brings me to the next point is caffeine can actually impair this whole trinity beyond beyond what you may think is even possible. It seems so innocent just to have a cup of coffee or two, and particularly on an empty stomach. So caffeine increases cortisol, which is our stress hormone, and also decreases our thyroid function. So you may know our thyroid is kind of the thermostat for our whole metabolic system. So when we talk about hormone health, we often think of just like our sex hormones like estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, but there are a plethora of different hormones. There's about 50 different hormones that are required for all kinds of things from metabolism to growth to development, of course, to reproduction, and to sex hormones as well. So it's interesting that, from this little thing of coffee, how it can impair our gut health, and it affects the balance in our gut and can create some additional the loop of the wellness trinity. So very simply, caffeine would be great for you to be mindful of. Another thing we should talk about is vitamin D. Vitamin D helps all of these issues. So we know with low levels of vitamin D, we have a slow stomach emptying. So it's very difficult to actually lose weight when you are low in vitamin D. And having using the metabolic balance program with my clients, now everyone gets a blood test done, and oftentimes we'll test vitamin D levels because this is a really key indicator of the ability to lose weight and for all kinds of health and immunity as well. But predominantly, I would say the vast majority of people that I've ever had tested, I think every single one actually has been low in vitamin D. So particularly now, depends when you're watching this, where right now I'm in the winter months in the northern hemisphere of Canada. So it's even more challenging to get natural daylight and our own natural vitamin D without supplementation. So supplementation in therapeutic doses is generally advised. You can get your vitamin D levels tested. You can check with your practitioner, your doctor, or if you're dealing with me, we can have that tested directly. So we also know that low vitamin D, or with adequate amount of vitamin D, at least our gut health is improved. So I hope this is helpful for you, that All of what we've been talking about, hormonal imbalance and inflammation and gut health are all interrelated. And the key remedies that I just discussed with you, I'll just go over them quickly again if you're jotting this down, adding adequate amount of fiber to your diet, along with that, some additional water to make sure that you can excrete, reducing any inflammatory foods or eliminating them completely, adding good quality fats to your diet, reducing cortisol or stress, and being mindful or scrapping the caffeine, and then increasing your levels of vitamin D. So that's where you can start. If you want to go further, I would invite you to book a call with me. I deal with the Metabolic Balance Program, which is a 100% all natural food program, to deal with hormonal health, inflammation, and of course, gut issues. So that would be the next step in terms of going deeper. That would be the Cadillac type of approach. There are also other things that we can address, whether that be a cleanse or maybe just cleaning up your diet. But I would be happy to discuss that with you. If you want to let me know where you're at, we can work out a plan and go a little bit deeper. So I invite you to book a call if you want to go further. And if not, I hope that what I've shared with you gives you some platform to address these imbalances. So I will wish you well and good health in your gut, your hormones, and in your body. Thanks, and bye for now.